Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry, I've been muted. My name is Victor, and today I'm gonna open this webinar about making prototypes and building business applications faster. I've got two colleagues from my side, Mario and Inna. They will help me today to answer probably your questions coming in the YouTube channel, and maybe help me with some difficult technical questions. Let's start. It's the first webinar after several years of keeping silent. You may know that we have been working hardly to adjust the positioning and the product features of our Jmix platform for years. And now we've validated our ideas, shaped the product finally, and we are ready to share with you our mindset about the product positioning and the benefits it gives in the terms of building applications faster. Let's start with today's agenda. Today I'm gonna open a set of questions. The first one is about general approaches to make developers' productivity higher. So we will explore and describe some major approaches to this technology aspect. The next thing is we shall talk about how to build a broad spectrum of internal systems and workflow automation on a single platform. Is it a viable idea or not? We'll also try to highlight the question concerning the decreasing of software license spendings with the open source technologies. And finally, we'll touch the question with minimizing risk of migrating from legacy in the scope of future-proof technology stack and future-proof applications. To start with, I would like to share some general assumptions which will shape our following presentation. The first thing is that we do not want to discuss digital transformation aspect today. So our webinar is more about platform and tools to gain development productivity, So that means that we think that some digital transformation agenda already appears. So it exists as it is. Next thing is that we think that you face issues with endless backlog and development power shortage. So that's the reason you decided to come to our webinar maybe and to watch which kind of technologies exist on the market. And the last one, that you may be starved for technologies and tools to resolve those issues. So searching for approaches to break through these difficulties and to deliver faster. Everything that we should explain today and show today will explain against traditional development approach. So that means the approach when you take frameworks and professional developers and build something. So let's take it as it is. This is the shape, this is the figure describing who do participate in our webinar today. And these personas and profiles, we are targeting our messages today. So that means that we won't go too deep in technical details today, but moreover, we'll talk about pros and cons of different technologies which can be used to increase developer productivity, and try to recommend best, which will definitely help you. And we'll start with exploring all the existing ways of making development faster on the actual market situation. Things which we'll show on this slide is our personal reflection on the situation which takes place on the market. So that means that we do not invent any new technology, any new terms. We just decided to grab all the data existing in the internet coming from different vendors and try to categorize it in sections. And to make you a better overview of those technologies, we decided to put not only the name of technologies here, but also the promises which those vendors give to their audience. So the first one, which exists on the slide, is a traditional approach. I've mentioned it before on the previous slide. We call it as it is. So we'll take it as a reference. And the first technology appeared several years ago and gaining popularity worldwide is the technology called no-code. Yeah, and the major promise coming from the vendors of this market says that you are not going to need a developer. So that means that definitely these kind of technologies help companies to deliver digital products faster, eliminating the demand of developer. This kind of platforms and tools, they announced a new type of developer in the market called citizen developer. So these are the persons working in the companies or in consultancy companies which do not have software engineering background. So they are not developers at all, but bringing them some templates of applications which can be customized according to different business domains, or equipping them with some analogs of, let's say, web-based data sets and spreadsheets. These things do really make them build small applications for groups, for team collaboration, and even sometimes resolving some small business tasks. So this does really work, you know, and we do recognize very serious players on this market like Airtable. This kind of product was seriously examined by our specialists, and we do recognize that it's really helpful. So it's easy to use, and it does it really fast. The next technology I want to bring here to the slide is low-code. This is the most confusing term coming in the last 5 years. And you know that vendors working in this space, they made a huge span in understanding and describing what is this, what kind of skills are needed. So they claim that anyone can be a low-code developer. So this means that they announce a new type of developer which should appear in their companies and organizations to make them working with this type of technology. And the thing is that still not clear who is this, who should be those person. We find out that a lot of companies have been attracted by this kind of technology because most presentations and YouTube movies you can detect in the internet, they show how applications can be done just by drag and dropping some blocks and arrows. And it looks really cute. But the thing is that analysts say the most difficulties come after a certain period of exploiting this kind of technology. So that means that after the prototype stage, companies really meet difficulties with embedding the results of this development into enterprise architecture. The next thing is that low-code developer can just start some project and then switch to another business task. So that means it's not really clear who will support this development after that. Once these kind of platforms come to the central IT and the professional developers, they don't really understand what they should do with that, because examining and studying a new type of technology, script language, is not valuable for them. They know instruments which they've got used to implement daily. Those difficulties come to a certain clickbait messages you can meet in the internet. I just want to highlight several of them on the next slide. Some of them are really humorous, like, you know, adapt to die. This is the last call for implementing this kind of technologies. Others are more abstract. They say they know code logic only. But you see that they are really crying. So that means that yelling. So that means that they are yelling that they definitely can help, but they don't really explain how. That's the reason this kind of system this kind of approach really meet difficulties in real enterprise in a real enterprise situation. The last one and the last technology we'd like to announce today, we call it less code, or some vendors call it open code. It really focuses on providing platforms and tools to eliminate developers from writing boilerplate code. They claim that let's make professional developers more productive. You know what? That's a lot. There were a lot of researchers that claim that, in particular, developers spend over 85% of their developer time on infrastructural and routine operations, and just 15% of time is carried on some valuable business features or business, let's say, business code. So This approach says that we can eliminate this boilerplate code to make developers concentrate on the things which do really bring business value. Nevertheless, there is no one golden technology, and it's always around some compromise, you know. We are here today to help you identify the most suitable way to improve time to market and increase developer productivity. And in order to do that, based on this platform's categorization, we are going to add some new aspects here. And the most interesting and valuable aspect is the developer profile. We will add it to the slide. So as you can see, two kinds of technologies, no-code and low-code, are focusing on citizen developers against less code and traditional development, which is focusing on professional developers. With less code, I've already mentioned, professional developers can really spend less time on typical tasks. And we think that developer persona is a major decision vector when evaluating different technologies. And incorrect decisions in terms of developer profile, they bring difficulties in adopting each kind of this technology. And the most bad thing here is that you can meet developer resistance. Developer resistance is the thing we hear from our customers today, because as I've already mentioned, professional developers say that I will first write several lines of code, then draw something with blocks and arrows. And looking closer to the developer profiles and the people who are tracking those technologies, we can detect the tendency. Here you can see that there are two certain groups tending to use less code platforms as their major technology to gain productivity. We're announcing here the term business technologist. Primarily, we've got this term coming from Gartner analysts. This is a certain cohort of people working in business who have software engineering background in the past. So they are quite tech savvy, but right now, actually, they are solving some business tasks. And analyzing our existing community, I mean community of our platform, we've detected that there is a certain portion of specialists who are not, let's say, professional developers, but they tend to use some mainstream technologies because things that they've studied in the university are closer to them. Another trend is the transition of in-house developers towards the less code technologies. This trend is coming from the idea that businesses are struggling on business efficiency. And the business efficiency is usually about expenses and money, you know. And that's the reason that typical tasks can be solved by some opinionated approach, by some opinionated architecture. From one side, there are some limitations, constraints for developers in terms of these architectural things, especially related to less code platforms. But when you talk about things which should be delivered just in time, they come to a certain place. So I would like to say that we think that based on your developer profile, I mean your development team, you can easily detect which type of technology is preferable in your case. We believe that low-code technology is not really the best thing for the people who are somehow have software engineering background. And it definitely can help in-house developers and software houses to deliver faster. And to finalize this comparison, I'd like to add the major difference between these two worlds. It comes from the aspect of the runtime. because it looks like to rent or to own a car, when you rent a car, after finishing the driving, you need to bring it back to the company which rented to you. Your own car, you can continue driving. The same is with runtime. When you are building applications with no code and low code, you should always remember that you're working on someone's runtime and you will never possess the source code. And in the opposite, when you're working with less code and traditional development, you own your own runtime and the source code belongs to you. And here comes a very important aspect, maybe very important for a certain amount of companies, called vendor lock. The first category of no-code and low-code platforms, they do really bring vendor locking. And whenever they claim things on the web slides, talking that you can just download the code and inspect it, it will never run without their own platforms, their SaaS services or whatever. And against that, platforms related to less code and traditional approach, they do not definitely bring any vendor lock because the source code is yours and you control everything. Here, I just want to make a little pause and ask Mario if there are some questions about this part of the presentation. Mario?
No, until now we have not heard anything, so you can just keep going.
Yeah. This was the primary overview of three types of technologies appearing on the market, as I've mentioned before, which try to help with developer productivity. And we've compared them based on the developer profile and the promises which appear in the market coming from different vendors. But to go deeper in details, we decided to build some comparison metrics and to show it visually, which fits better different use cases, which technology, I mean. So let's first announce the comparison metrics. Here I show on the slide 5 criteria with a description. I just want to announce that the first one is the UI agility. It's the UI capabilities of the platform and the ability to bring different user experiences. Another one is let's call it flexibility or business logic agility, the ability to deliver or to model complex data models, to design business processes and to work with BPM technologies, time to market, no commands, integration capabilities. It's more about the openness of the platform, about its API, about the integration capabilities in terms of technologies which it can support in the enterprise landscape. And the last one, important, I've mentioned it already on the previous slide, is the vendor independency. It's more about the ability to be utilized without the vendor runtime. So to possess the source code, you can also get it as it is. So this is the first slide showing the evaluation of the no-code technology based on these 5 axes. You can see that this technology does really bring the most performance related to time to market aspect. I've already mentioned that those type of systems, they do really help on the early stages when companies need to bring some prototype in a very short term. And making these things with no code is fantastic. But the bad thing here is that it's totally vendor dependent. So it's usually located on the cloud service, and you can download nothing from it, and you cannot even investigate what's going on inside. They have very poor debugging capabilities. The next technology is low code. Comparing against no code, you can see that this type of technology, it brings more in terms of UI agility. They usually give even mobile experiences, but with the lack of customization. You know that we are talking about UX design. It's always about fully customizable theme. They go further with business logic agility. So they give more in terms of data model complexity, and they bring processes. And they have better integration capabilities because they usually provide the pre-built catalog of add-ons, which help them to integrate with different type of systems, which are also used in the enterprise. But still, they go nowhere with the vendor independency. They keep the same position because no way they will give you things running inside. And here I'd like to show the less code approach. You'll see that it's much wider on business agility, UI agility, and integration capabilities, but it shows worse score in time to market. The reason is that code appears here, and you cannot deliver an application without coding a line of code. Yeah, so you need to do some coding in this case. But what it brings most profitable here is the vendor independency, because it gives you the ability to get the source code, to control the runtime, but still it's not the highest score because it's just an architecture which have been already developed and brought to you by the software vendor who provide this type of the platform. And to finalize this comparison, I'd like to bring the traditional approach here, or even less code approach at the same diagram. You can see that traditional approach, which can be already used in your company, it gives total freedom and the maximum score in UI agility, business logic agility, vendor independence, and integration capabilities. But it is slow. You know that things which have been created or are going to be created with the traditional approach, they have sometimes unpredictable expenses and time periods. So that's the reason less code, it can gain more power to this area, and reduce the time to market parameter, which is the most valuable, as we think, for the businesses worldwide. And this type of the platform, which we call less code, we do implement in Jmix, our major platform, which we are going to describe further today. So now we define Jmix as a less code platform, which have been built to supercharge your development team. It's not just a simple sentence, you know, so that means that it's not just a fluffy thing, because we've equipped Jmix with the best tools which have been already tested and implemented in the previous version of the product called Cuba platform, and increased the ability to build complex web applications. We've enriched it with ready-to-use business components, which you can detect in the special marketplace catalog. We've built on the mainstream open source and technologies, and moved to another more popular technology, Springboot core, again Spring used in Cuba. You know that this technology is nicely backed by documentation, free public forum, and the community worldwide is continuously growing. To give you an overview of the Jmix components, I just made three major sections, which we usually deliver to our customers. The first one is the framework. You know that framework is the open source core, which includes powerful API for working with data. It does really simplifies various operations above Spring Boot and makes it easier for developers to handle with it. It brings the UI components library, which you can easily drag and drop inside your application, and they will be working. And what's more important, they are data aware. So that means they can be easily binded with the data model. To work with them, we provide also a special API to build this enterprise-grade UI. And on top of that, we give the fine-grained security. That's not let's say the total package of the product. Moreover, we give the special tool or the pack of red tools which help to handle with this framework. Those red tools can be delivered to you as a studio, as a plugin to a famous integrated development environment coming from IntelliJIDEA. And they include smart coding assistants, which help developers to make less mistakes and generate code. They bring data model designer, which help to make prototypes really just in minutes. We know stories when our customers, they develop simple crude applications in 1 or 2 days to show it to their business stakeholders. We provide drag and drop screen designer, which helps to operate with the UI components and make a live preview in the development environment. And to help developers to work with the security subsystem, we provide a security permission designer, where everything can be configured using visual tools. And to make developers enrich their application with the business components, we give them the ability to use the marketplace. Nowadays, it consists of more than 38 components which can be included in the project on demand. The most popular component which is used worldwide is the BPMN designer and the BPM engine. We provide the flowable implementation to carry business processes within the platform. We know also that the second most popular component from the marketplace is Maps. It helps to work with spatial data and makes it easier to perform representation and manipulation with it. By a few clicks, developers can add generic REST API on top of the platform and to use it as a part of a more complicated system where front-end can be developed with specialized front-end technologies. Here, application built with Jmix can be a robust backend. And what's more important is that we provide also the technology to build your own add-ons and reuse them multiple times. So this really helps to make modular applications, and we support this pattern of application design. And what's next? This is not the only thing, because a lot of these things have been already presented in our previous product. Now they have been seriously enhanced. And to give the developers the ability to bring full application development lifecycle, we are working on delivery tools and capabilities. What we are doing nowadays, we are also bringing database migration scripts generation to support further delivery after the initial phase of application design. We do handle dependency management on the whole lifecycle of your application. We usually mention this because other types of platforms called code generators, they do also generate or scaffold in some applications, but they do not support the code further. So it's becoming really a headache for the developer to manage the dependencies. And with our platform, we do it by ourselves. So there are less problems for developer teams. And the last feature we've delivered in the test version in July is the one-click deployment. So we try to guide the developer through all stages of prototyping, configuring security subsystem, designing some business process, testing and deployment by the same platform. And the next product we are going to promote on top of the platform we are promoting today is the cloud control. It's the separate product, cloud control. This is a dedicated product, which we think should help with automating some typical DevOps operations. We've detected that with small teams, which consist of 3-5 developers working together, they just sometimes have lack of time or skills to build serious CI/CD pipelines. And we are going to help them with that, with this product. So if you are interested in such kind of capabilities, especially with your teams or inside your company, we are lucky to get some requests from your side to perform a dedicated presentation of the product. It's not the topic of our today's webinar. And to finalize, I'd like to highlight some distinctive features of applications which should be built with Jmix. First thing is that they should be domain specific. So that means that they are targeted on professionals in a certain domain area and not mass market. We know that there is no reason to build traditional CRM or content management system if good solutions already exist on the market. But when it goes to a very narrow domain area and the custom development comes into the place, we say that Jmix is a good thing to use because it can definitely decrease uncertainties on the way to bring this application. The second thing is that most of our applications are data-centric. So that means that there are some relational databases inside which play a crucial role in the application. And as we are talking about data-centric, they mostly should be transaction-oriented. So that means that they will comply with high consistent and availability standards and assume ACID compliance with each transaction. Applications built with Jmix usually have very complex data model and business logic. It doesn't include only business rules or some simple internal workflows, but usually it's around some content-driven or end-to-end process automation scenarios. And within these scenarios, developers implement some data processing algorithms. When we're talking about UI, it's more about enterprise UI. So that means that developers which use Jmix, they have the task to build hundreds of similar screens for internal users. Who are internal users? They are employees and partners. And the constraints and the design patterns which should be implemented are quite standard for the enterprise. And this set of criteria usually fit 100% Jmix target applications. To give you a short overview of the applications which have been already built with our community, nowadays I made a small site discovering such types of solutions like Customer 360, underwriting, customer onboarding, fleet management, and here you can also see some target industries where we have most portion of our applications, which have been built with Jmix by our community. This is not the only thing, because Jmix is not used only for building something new. Yeah, it's more than in 30% of use cases, Jmix can be nicely implemented for legacy migration. Why should you perform legacy migration? Usually we tell our customers that you should think about it when it becomes too expensive to keep it running. And when you reach this point, you should also think about the technology which should be used to perform this in certain time frame. And when our customers explore and investigate features of low-code and no-code platforms, they usually say that there is not enough flexibility. So that means that they do have some constraints that won't be capable with the business logic which have been already implemented in the legacy software already used in the company. And there are certain pros amount of pros that do really help, do really make to say that Jmix perfectly fits this scenario of so it means that Jmix is perfectly matches the scenario to be used for legacy migration. The first one is that it has a future-proof technology stack inside. I've already mentioned that it has been built on springboot, and starting from 2013, it's the most popular technology for web-based applications nowadays. The second thing is that we bring dedicated database reverse engineering tools inside the Jmix. They do really help to transform your data model into entities and screens with several clicks. The next thing is that tools I've already mentioned do really help developers to perform onboarding. We know that when we meet those scenarios with legacy migration, it is usually performed by the same people which have been supported the legacy system before. And businesses, they meet the task to perform education and to perform onboarding of those developers to the new technology stack. And we've got a lot of examples when people coming from Oracle Forms, Microsoft Silverlight, Fox Pro, Apex, they do really perform onboarding in a short term, because the screens, the approach, and the technology working with Jmix looks quite similar. And on top of that, we say that you just need to use one language to develop back and front within the Jmix platform. This also eliminates developers from the front-end UI complexity. You know that modern front-end UI technologies are definitely hard to understand, especially for backend developers. And combining all these features, we do really transform people who supported the legacy systems to a modern full-stack developers working with Java. And there are a certain amount of use cases where this platform, Jmix, does really help our customers to perform this migration in a short time. You can find more details about these use cases on our website. You can see the link below. And the last thing I want to highlight today is that we evaluate Jmix as the best option for independent software vendors. The set of profits which our platform brings to those category of customers does really overcomes low-code and no-code systems, which I've already mentioned. First of all, I want to say again that there is no vendor dependency. That means that things that have been developed by an independent software vendor, they really belong to him, and they can be distributed without additional penalties, additional license penalties. They have a rich, customizable UI, And I've already mentioned that we bring some dedicated tools to customize this UI for developer teams. ISVs say that it's easier to perform stuffing for the projects, because in general, developer with a Java background or with .NET background even can come to the Jmix development and become productive in a month. And to promise that, we bring a pack of education materials, video materials, and documentation, which is available on the website. And on top of that, a lot of high productivity tools embedded in the professional IDE are also provided within the platform. And to share more insights on this and to share a real story of implemented platform within the ISV, I'd like to pass the word to Mario. He's also with us today. Mario, can you please tell your story?
Oh yeah, sure. Thanks. So basically, this slide with the ISVs actually fits quite well to how I and the company that I worked for back then actually was in a particular situation of such an independent software vendor. And so basically, do you want to give the next slide? Yeah, exactly. So perhaps, so the background basically was, as I said before, like a dedicated software vendor, and we had like a lot of Java background and like a dedicated development team. So when we remember the slides from before, when Victor was talking about this traditional development, so this was basically the situation that we were in. And so the basic situation was that it was simply hard to hold the deadlines that we were either aiming for or were needed to deliver and so on. And here it was really the situation that so we needed to speed up our development efforts a little bit. And on the other side, we had the situation of a legacy migration, actually coming from a Delphi-based system with the Oracle database. And there was a lot of flexibility needed in order to achieve basically this migration. So so back then we actually looked, so it was like a couple of years ago, we looked into the topics of, what is nowadays called low code or no code even. Back then it was not that prominent from the wording, but also not from the offerings. So there were mainly two things. So first of all, it was just because of the flexibility that was just simply not there. And so we are looking into something like, I don't know, Salesforce or SAP or something. So they also have like similar offerings. But besides the flexibility problem, it's actually also that you simply buy into this payment or pricing model that they have. And so it depends a little bit on the strategy of you being an ISV, but for us, it simply didn't make any kind of economic sense to go down this route. So this is why we then looked into the more traditional space and found like Cuba platform back then. Nowadays it's called Jmix. Basically, it still let us be in this domain of software development and have the flexibility that we needed. But still somehow manage our requirements in terms of speed and so on. So this was basically, just to add to Victor's point here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mario. And I'd like to highlight also the special series of videos which have been recorded by Mario, explaining and showing how to build a simple SaaS application. You will be able to find it via the link on the bottom. This series is called Run Your Stuff, and it does really help you to get a look at the process of application development at all stages, from designing data model, security, deployment, testing, and moreover. So we do really invite you to visit this video series to have a better look at Jmix and how it does really looks and feel. Yeah. And the last slide I'd like to switch today is about key takeaways. Let's finalize with our topics today. Yeah, and I'd like to highlight some major things coming from the analysis and pros and cons we've discussed today towards different kind of technologies. First of all, I'd like to say that today we've announced Jmix as a less code platform. Internally, we call it a general purpose platform. You know that this platform is not just a CRM or BPM system with additional low code or no code capabilities. Amount of applications which have been built with Jmix is really amazing. So it does really come from different areas, and this really makes us proud to claim it a general purpose high productivity platform, because you can build practically everything. Another thing is that when we've created this platform, we thought that we're creating the platform for developers by developers, because you may know that we are performing we are performing custom development also, and we are using this technology for our own products, for our own projects, and we also build products. And most of technologies, approaches, and pleasant capabilities, which have been embedded in the platform, they have been tested already by our team and by our company. The next important thing is that everything which is built with Jmix is based on the mainstream open source technologies. So we are standing on the shoulder of giants, really. So that means that we don't really want to reinvent the wheels. So we are tracking the most popular tendencies on the market and try to use them inside the platform, despite inventing our own things. We do really believe in rapid application development tools. You can see that we left this concept working inside the Jmix platform, and we see that this approach does really help to build prototypes faster. We detect use cases when a small team can deliver the first prototype in 1 or 2 weeks. So that really helps. And the catalog of pre-built and ready-to-use add-ons is continuously enriching, and we are going to make it wider further. Overall, this set of features really improves time to market. And you know that the environment, the economical environment, is really tough right now. So I think that this parameter will be more important in future. And what should be most important for the independent software vendors is that it really brings vendor independency. So that means that when you implement your business domain expertise, you shouldn't share it with any SaaS vendor. You can encapsulate it inside your own application and deliver it to your customers. And keeping us consistent, we are promoting quite similar to our previous product pricing model, where we are leaving the free subscription plan, which helps developers to continue developing the product even if the paid subscription is finished. The paid subscriptions, they do really help to uncover those productivity capabilities. So I would like to say thank you for your attention today. We've tried to give you a certain, let's say, overview of the technologies which appear on the market today for delivering and building applications faster. I hope that this information can be valuable and you can reuse it internally, because I hope this will make you to eliminate maybe some failures with choosing the technology to gain this productivity. So we are searching for your feedbacks. We are looking to meet you on the website, and we are ready to answer questions if something appear in the chat. Thank you.
Yes, there are actually a couple of questions that we can try to answer. Some of them have already been answered in the chat, but I will quickly go through them. So the first one is Jmix only support Spring Boot? So I would interpret the question so that it's about what is actually the underlying technology of Jmix. And is it possible to switch these technologies under the Jmix runtime? So yeah, as of now, Jmix supports Spring Boot, and this is basically the core of the whole technology. Yeah, so this is basically what it supports. And then a related question was coming as well from the like the topic of front and backend support. So for this one, what we just discussed before, like the Spring Boot is backend technology. So this is basically how you write your backend logic. And I would interpret the question so that if it's possible to have like a dedicated front end and backend separation. And so I think here it is possible. What we can say, like the default mechanism is basically that you do not have a very so the front end and the backends are basically almost, you can think of it like the same thing, which is perhaps not the most natural thing coming from a traditional background, because there you oftentimes nowadays have like front end frameworks that you, or like even teams that are dedicated to building the UI and so on. So yeah, in Jmix this is possible to do it, and I've seen actually a couple of projects where this has been done. But the majority of this is based on the UI technology that you basically choose, but with the offerings to go and create like APIs via either these add-ons that Victor was talking about, or alternatively through custom REST APIs, and then you can basically connect it to any front end that you would want. So basically what, coming back to the original discussion, to this low code and low code thing, what you will basically do is you buy more flexibility. And this is a good example actually on how or where the platform is actually more flexible. So you can, if you want to, you can do that and build a dedicated React front end. And this is basically where it differentiates a little bit from these low code tools, because you normally are more constrained regarding the flexibility. And what you will lose if you decide that is basically you take some of the opinions that have been made in this less code idea and basically replace it with your own, and then you will lose some of the speed that you would normally have. I think this would be everything that I can say.
I just would I would just to add a few words on top of that, saying that we're also working continuously on improving the UI technologies, and in July we've also presented the upgraded UI part of the platform. It looks prettier. So, and based on our experience of implementing this platform in the companies, we see that it's quite sufficient for the target applications I've mentioned in the presentation. So that means when we are talking about enterprise applications, the most important aspect is time. is time and money. Yeah, and you need to build something fast and not expensive. And this task can be solved with Jmix perfectly. So that means that the results will certainly meet, in most cases, let's say in most cases, expectations of the internal users and some limited amount of external users working with the Jmix as, I don't corporate portal, for example. We know such kind of use cases. It's enough. But I again want to highlight that despite no codes, if you want to go to a scalable UI, or I don't know, you use your own design system and you want to support it, it's not a constraint. Here, Jmix will help you to build in a RAD style, in a rapid application development style, the backend for this application. Yeah, and it will give you the generated and the supported API, REST API, to support your front end part with the data and business logic. So that means that we do not put any limitations here. It can be done. Yeah. Thank you, Mario.
All right, then we have another one. Let's take a look. So there was a quick question regarding the UI designer. So I think the question is, where to find that. So this is basically embedded as part of the IntelliJ plugin. So you basically, as part of your regular development workflow, you can switch from source code view to a visual representation view, and then basically have some form of like drag and drop mechanisms in order to create visual representation of your UI.
Yeah.
So then
that's right.
Okay, so then we have something very technical about which databases it's possible to connect to. So there's a question about if it's possible to connect to a BigQuery. So here, once again, so generally speaking, Jmix works with all kinds of relational databases that are mainly supported by the JVC libraries. So this includes a lot of databases. So for the majority of the functionality, Jmix relies on a relational database model. So this means, and if I assume correctly, BigQuery is actually represented or can be accessed via SQL. So this means it's actually possible to connect to it. When we take this question a little bit wider and talk about NoSQL databases in general, then the answer is still yes. It is possible to connect to those databases and use them, but with limitations and with more custom coding. So this is another example of where, when you need the flexibility, you can have it, and basically what you have to pay for it, so to say, in terms of productivity. But yeah, there's nothing that prevents you from using that.
Yeah, and comparing to other technologies, again, when we'll come back to the low-code and no-code systems, and we talk about different types of databases, you should also come to some kind of a wall. You can come to some kind of a wall because they just won't support this, and you will need to ask the vendor to give you additional functionality to support some dedicated database you want to attach. But yeah, that's it. That means that in any case, Jmix just give you a broad functionality to connect different databases. But if you use NoSQL databases, you need to write some code. When we are talking about no-code, low-code platforms, they just cannot give those capabilities. They work with the things which have been already packed into the box. That's it.
Okay, then we have a couple of questions regarding the learning curve and basically, what are the prerequisites in order to be productive with Jmix? I mean, this of course depends a little bit on what you want to build with it, but let's say for the start, it's enough to learn or to know a little bit of the Java. And perhaps not even necessarily need a lot of Spring knowledge, I would assume. So for the UI part, it's also not really necessary to know the underlying technologies, which is Vaadin. Even, I mean, I can probably count it on one hand where I actually digged into the source code, like after working several years with the Jmix or with Cuba platform, and actually needed to do some Vaadin related tasks. So I think the learning curve is comparably low, in particular because you it is, from the programming model, it's quite similar to what you might like when we're talking about a migration scenario or like a legacy migration, you know, then it's comparably similar to, you know, developing like yeah, so for example, like a Java Swing or like, you know, the dedicated desktop application. So from the UI modeling and so on. So yeah, I think this is about it. Then we have something that is related. Do I need to learn Spring Boot before I can use Jmix or Cuba? Yeah, as I said, I wouldn't say so. So there might be, of course, as you go along, it might be valuable to have, you know, to pick up some background knowledge. But for the most part, it's not critical part for, at least.
I would like to share my personal experience here about learning this Spring Boot. You know, most of the use cases and technologies are nicely described in the Jmix documentation. So the team is continuously working on enriching this documentation with examples to build some typical scenarios with examples of code and with the reference links to the technologies which are under the hood. So that means that you can just go into Jmix documentation and start reading about the platform architecture, about things, about APIs which are used to work with data, to work with UI, and things around Spring Boot will just follow you during reading this documentation. And if you will need to dig in details, you can just Google it and detect needed information concerning the issue you've met, really. So I just want to say that, to summarize that, you can just start reading the documentation of Jmix and Spring Boot will come along. So it's everywhere. They are in this documentation. It will, so the documentation will give you the full overview of the pack of technologies which is needed to build application with Jmix. This is the way I'm personally passed. I've personally passed.
Okay, and I think there are a couple of more questions. Perhaps we have one last technical one, which is about AWS Cognito, and if it's possible to integrate probably the you know, user management and using that through a proper IDP and not having it as part of your Jmix application. So the answer here, yes, this is also possible. There's a dedicated add-on for OpenID Connect, which Cognito also uses. And so this way you can basically take out the functionality of the Jmix user management and basically replace it with some central Cognito solution. Yeah, this will work.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me quickly scroll through that if there's anything else that has not already been answered in the chat. So perhaps, yeah, one somehow, let's say somehow technical one is, can we develop microservices using Jmix?
Yeah, that's quite
so that also yeah, so this is also a more technical question, but let's see how we can answer that. So generally speaking, I would say yes. Here once again, Jmix does not propose you any way or form on how you deploy your software. You can build it in one big application, or you can slice it into various business aspects and let the applications communicate with each other. And as we already talked about before, it is also possible to have, like, you know, REST APIs or GraphQL APIs that you expose. So it's also possible to communicate, you know, and this is really boils down to the strong foundational technology that Jmix uses with the Spring Spring Boot. There's like a lot of or a ton of integrations for all kinds of integration patterns regarding messaging or like APIs and so on. So yes, this is possible when it comes to the UI and how to integrate different microservices into one UI, or like having several of those. Then it really depends on how you want to make that happen. As we already said, it is possible to have like an API to build a like a dedicated front end and as part of a React application or whatever. So this would easily be possible. If you want to go with the Jmix Vaadin based UIs, then there are also possibilities that you can connect the UIs together and jump from one UI into another. Then it might be also relevant that you have a proper user authentication, as we talked before, with a central IDP as Cognito, for example, so that you actually across all the microservices you can jump back and forth and share your user session and so on. Yeah, so I think this would be my answer to that.
Yeah, we just add a few words here that saying that Jmix brings no limitations to build microservices, but it doesn't help too much with that. that's the thing. So the most value of Jmix is that you can create data model and UI within the same platform, within the same language, and it's really fast. When we're talking about microservices, it's not usually about the UI, it's just not needed, and a lot of things that Jmix brings to the developer, they just disappear. So that means that you won't be able to get all profits, from Jmix features. That's the reason I'm saying it's that way. Thank you, Mario. Just wanted to add that.
Okay, and then we have one additional one regarding that you might answer, Victor. Is there any kind of bootcamp, or Jmix has any kind of certification or like learning program or whatever that you're offering?
We do have a set of learning courses. You can. I will try to share. Just a second. Few manipulations. That's it. Yeah, Mario, can you see the screen with the website, with the Jmix website?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So here you can. This is the website of Jmix. And here you can see the in the menu the part related to developers. Here you can detect the item learn. And when you go inside, first of all, you can see 3 categories of, let's say, self-service learning, which brings some video tutorials, brings you some sample applications, a special UI sample, which makes you evaluate how do those UI components feel and look like. When we're talking about training, there is also a special item in the service and partners folder. You can go here and detect the course catalog. You can download this course catalog using the web page, and there you will find a set of available trainings. They are split in 2 categories. They're split in 2 categories. The first one, let's say, is light version, and the second one is advanced. The first category is quite fast and quick. It just usually takes a few hours. Advanced usually takes 1 day or several days. And then you can choose the courses you want to learn, send us the request, You can use info Jmix, Jmix email, or you can use the request form here, and we will reply when we can organize this kind of courses for you and send you the proposal. So this is how it definitely works. But again, I just want to highlight that there are a lot of materials which are already available for free. You can even detect the basics of working with Jmix in recorded also videos showing examples how to do what. So they describe some typical scenarios, which will definitely help you when you are just starting to learn to evaluate this technology. But nevertheless, you can access service importance and training and find the course catalog here and the request the needed amount of courses with the request form or written as email. That's it. Thank you.
I think this is about it. There's only one last question that I could answer, which is, can I use Jmix or Cure to develop a mobile application? So here, I think with the latest changes from the Vaadin 23 adoption, which is now in preview mode, but will at some point in the near future will be ready for production. You already have responsive design by default. So this means that perhaps like a couple of scenarios are already covered by that. And if you want to go down the route of native application or something, then I think it would be better to only use Jmix here as the backend storage mechanism and like for providing the business logic, and then connect it to an iOS or an Android app via a regular API. So this is, I think, here once again, all the options are basically at your fingertips. You can Jmix doesn't limit you in this particular respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing to it from my side. That's true. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think this is it.
That's all.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great. So then I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for attention. Thank you for spending 1 hour and 15 minutes with us, investigating and explaining our approach to these high productivity technologies. I hope this will this brought you some new information, brought answers on your questions, and we are here working to help you further. Please ask questions and feedbacks, and wait for announcement of the new webinar. Hope it will come soon, not latest than the autumn. Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Ina. Wish you a nice day. See ya.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. See you. Bye.